Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're doing well. Now, just a heads up, I'll be starting a new series on Ansible where I'll be demonstrating how to install Ansible and how to use it to control and manage target nodes. Now, this video will be a first in this series and I'll be demonstrating how to install Ansible on Ubuntu 22.04. So in case you're unfamiliar with Ansible, we'll take a minute or two and break it down for you. So what is Ansible? Now, Ansible is an IT automation tool that is open source and it allows you to automate configuration management, application deployment, and other operations on multiple nodes. Now, unlike other IT automation tools like Chef and Puppet, Ansible is agentless. And this means that there's no need to install any piece of software on the remote systems in order to work with Ansible. And the advantage of this is that it results in low overhead and low resource consumption on target nodes, which is ideal because you don't want Ansible to impact the performance on your target machines. Now, instead, it uses SSH protocol and Python to establish a connection with the target systems. Now, to get things done, all the tasks are defined inside the Ansible playbook files. So this is where all the tasks to be carried out are defined, and the playbook files are written in YAML format. Now, the information about the target systems is stored inside an inventory file, which by default is this file, etc ansible hosts. However, you can also define your own inventory file during playbook runtime, as we shall see later on in this series. Now, to get a better picture of how Ansible works, here we have the Ansible control node. So this is a server on which you're going to install Ansible, and in our case, this will be the Ubuntu 22.04 node. Now, this control node will be managing the remote server using the SSH protocol, as you've just mentioned. Now, the information about the remote server will be stored in this file, or the inventory file as shown, and the tasks to be carried out will be defined in the playbook file. So this is just a brief introduction and a demonstration of how Ansible works. Next up, we are going to see how you can install Ansible on Ubuntu 22.04. So here we are. Let's get started with installing Ansible on Ubuntu 22.04. Now, for demonstration, I'll be using VS Code in all my tutorials in this series. Now, here is my simple setup. I'll be having the Ansible control node, whose IP is 173.82.232.55, and I'm going to use this node to connect to my remote target, or the managed node, which is 173.82.227.89. Now, to get started, I'm going to log in to my control node. So I'll run the command ssh james at the IP address 173.82.232.55. I'll provide my password. And I'm in. So you can obviously see I've logged into an instance of Ubuntu 22.04. Now, to get started, there are two ways of installing Ansible on Ubuntu. First, you can install from the default Ubuntu repositories using the apt package manager. And secondly, you can install from the PPA. Now, I'll demonstrate both methods, beginning or starting with the first one. So, to get started, update the system using the command sudo apt-update. So, this command updates the local package index We are done. All right. Now I'm going to install Ansible from the default repositories. So I'll run the command sudo apt install Ansible. As such, I'll press enter. All right. So here you can see the following additional package will be installed, which is ansible-core. And these are the packages that will be installed. So you have Ansible and ansible-core. So here I'm going to press yes and hit enter. So this installs all the packages that Ansible will need, and it will take a minute or two. So just be patient as the installation goes on. And finally, the installation is complete. Now, let's go back and check if Ansible is installed. So to do so, I'm going to run the following command, ansible version. All right, so this displays quite a bunch of information. For instance, you can see that we have installed ansible-core 2.13. This is the path of the configuration file, and you can see some other information that is listed here. All right. So that is how you install from the default repositories. Okay, now the other method is installing from the PPA. So before we do so, I'm going to remove Ansible first. So I'll run the command sudo apt purge Ansible, ansible-core. So this completely removes Ansible from my system. And again, this will take quite a bit of time. Right now, let's confirm that Ansible has completely been removed. So I'll run the command ansible version. So you see here we get this information that Ansible, or rather you get the information that there's no such file or directory, meaning that we have completely removed Ansible. Moving on, I'm going to install the software properties common package. So I'm going to run the command sudo apt install software properties common package. Now, this is a software that provides an abstraction of the apt repository. So I'll hit enter. So this is already installed. Okay. Now, the next step is to add the repository. So I'm going to run the command sudo add-apt-repository PPA Ansible /Ansible with a -es flag and update flag as such. So this command will add the PPA to the control node and update the package index, as you can see from the output. Great. Now, after adding the PPA, finally run the command sudo apt install ansible-core as such. Hit enter. So this will install the ansible-core meta package, and we're done. So once again, confirm that Ansible has been installed. So I'm going to run the command ansible version yet again, and you can see that we get the information about Ansible as we did before. All right, now Ansible has successfully been installed on the control node. Now we are going to move a step further, and we are going to establish a connection from the Ansible control node to the remote node, as I had just explained before. So now, to do so, I'm going first of all to switch to the root user. So I'll run sudo su to switch to the root user. So once in root, I'm going to generate an SSH key pair that I'm going to save, that I'm going to use to make a connection to the Ansible control node itself and the remote target. So first, I'm going to generate the key pair using the command ssh keygen. So I'm going to hit enter to accept the defaults. And there we go. So we have already generated the SSH key pair, which is saved in the SSH directory. So just to view the location, you can run ls ssh. So here you can see this is the private key and this is the public key. Okay. Now once I have generated the key pair, I'm going to copy the public key to the control node itself and to the remote target. So I'll run the command ssh copy id. So I'll copy it to root at the IP address of the control node, which is 173.82.232.55. Okay, so here I'll be prompted to continue, so I'll type yes. Then I'm going to provide the password of my local system. Great. So you can see we have already copied the key to the Ansible control node itself. All right. Now the next step, I'm going to copy the key to the remote node. So once again, I'll run the ssh copy id command to root at the remote target IP, which is 173.82.227.89. Okay, so I'll type yes to continue and provide the password. Great, we have added the key to the remote target and the Ansible control node itself. All right. Now, the next step is to establish a connection between the Ansible control node and the remote target. So to do so, I'm going to define both systems in the hosts file. So I'm going to open the inventory file, which is etc ansible host file. Okay, so this is the default inventory file where all the hosts or the target systems are defined. All right, so I'm going to scroll all the way down here and I'm going to create a host group. So I'm going to call it servers. All right, so just below the host group, I'm going to define the IP addresses of both my Ansible control node and the remote system. So I'm going to define the control node here, 173.82.227.89. So this is the 82.232.55. So that's the IP of the control node, and for the remote node, it's 173.82.227.89. All right. So I'm going to save the changes. All right. So here we are. Now I'm going to test for the connectivity by running this command, ansible-m ping servers. So here servers is the host group that I've just defined. So I'm going to press enter. Great. So here we can see we have achieved, or we have been able to initiate a connection, a successful connection to the remote system and to the control node itself. So far we have installed Ansible on the control node, and we've been able to add a remote target and established a successful connection to the target. So this wraps up this tutorial. I hope you found it informational. Thank you, and see you in the next lecture.